Firstly, thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to Dr. Julius Garvey for gracing us with your presence. We've got some amazing people in the room. I also want to say a special thank you to Queen Diambi. One of the key things for me while we're here is to connect the dots, because everybody in this room has done and is doing amazing things. And for me, one of the key factors behind what we're doing today is to bring everybody together.
10 years ago, Dr. Garvey inspired me to create the Marcus Garvey Legacy Trust. He didn't say that in words, but after he left, I felt compelled that there's something need to be done as a legacy. We have 6 aims and objectives: peace, education, culture, inspiration, aspiration, and motivation. There is only 2% of us that will think alike, act alike, and go for the same goal and aim. And when we put our minds and body together, we can accomplish anything. I know that.
It's an honor, simply because what this man's father meant to me growing up as a child, me being a boxing historian ain't got nothing to do with it. The prominence of this man, because when Marcus Garvey said, "You black man, you were once great, but you shall return to greatness. But why? You must keep the faith, you must keep courage." So I learned from your dad to live your dreams and aspirations, because loads of us live our fears and desperations. I learned that from your dad. But I just spun it and used it in my own way. Hear me?
It's a great honor and privilege to be standing here before all of you, and to be standing here in front of my dear friend, Dr. Julius Garvey. As I am Queen Diambi Kabatuswila Chiyomwata Mukalenga Mukaji Wankashama Wabakwa Luntu Wabaluba Wakasai Wakongo. That is my name and my title. Diambi means the bearer of good news. Kabatuswila is my father's name because I come through my father and mother. Chiyomwata is my lineage, is the name of my great-grandfather, the king. Mukalenga Mukaji means the woman king. So I am not really a queen, I am a woman king. Wankashama of the Order of the Leopard, that is the most ancient order that exists on the planet, because we started from the forest. Marcus Garvey, as Spencer mentioned and many of you have said before, has inspired us all. So we're going to take a moment, as the tradition requests, that we give reverence to our ancestors. Because after all, we didn't make it here by ourselves. We made it here because there is thousands of people that have contributed to us being alive today. Our ancestors have endured abuse, murder, rape, kidnapping, deportation, all kinds of hills. They have traversed the time through wars, famine, hunger. But yet, here we are. So we have to give gratitude to those ancestors for whatever they did so that we can be here today. I have Julius Garvey, I have Marcus Garvey, and I have all those who have come before him on the motherline and on the fatherline.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming here and being part of this magnificent occasion. It certainly will be a memorable occasion for me in terms of my visit to London. But you did point to something I think that's very, very significant, that basically the concept of Africa and in terms of its being a civilization, meaning the Pan-African concept, really started in the diaspora. And it started with a Trinidadian back in 1900, having the first Pan-African conference in London. And then W.B. Du Bois and others picked that up. And then, of course, my father in the early part of the 20th century had the organization Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And of course, his whole concept was to unite African people all over the world. He had had a significant experience on his own as a young man growing up in Jamaica and then traveling in the Caribbean to places like Cuba, to Central America, to Costa Rica, to Panama, and then back to Jamaica, and then going to England and traveling throughout Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and then on the continent itself. And so he saw the world. He didn't just know the world from books. He saw the world. He also went to university. And he understood the position that we were in as African people. What we have has been a degeneration of civilization. We can't really call it that. What has been developed coming out of Greece and Rome, etc. And certainly after the Middle Ages, they rewrote history. And of course, they wrote us out of history. And that was in order to justify the slave trade. So that you'll find that, since the 16th and 17th century, all of history has been rewritten. And, the ancient books have been either lost or burnt or in the Vatican or some other place like that. So we have been disconnected from who we are as a people, historically and otherwise. So it's important for us to know ourselves. Because if we know ourselves, then we understand, as you pointed out to us, number one, we're the original people. Number two, we're the first people that were able to understand civilization itself, meaning that we were able to interpret nature as it is. But we know, World War I, World War II, with the Korean War, the Vietnamese War, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Syria, the war in Libya, and it just goes on continually. And now, of course, we have the war in Ukraine. So that the European system does not produce peace. It does not produce prosperity. As you know, most of the world is poor, and you have about the top 5% of people in the world own more than 85 or 90% of the wealth. So we are all being dehumanized within a system that we cannot truly call a civilization, and therefore we have all the anxieties, we have all the fears. We have all the suicides among young people. We have all the drug use among young people, the alcohol abuse, the abuse of females, and on and on and on. And we can see it in terms of the chaos within different societies. We can see it in the chaos that's going on right now in terms of the British government, pardon the expression. And you can see it in terms of the chaos in Europe, right-wing in Italy, and so on. And you can see it in the Ukraine. And what's going to come out of this is going to be, a multipolar world. It's no longer going to be the hegemony of the United States because Europe is going to suffer over this winter. They will understand the mistake that they've made in terms of carrying a proxy war there in Ukraine when the U.S. is really the ones that's behind it. We now know that the pipeline has been sabotaged basically by the United States of America, which brings 40% of the oil and gas into Europe. So Europe is going to be without that oil and gas for the winter. Now, the U.S. can't supply it. We see Saudi Arabia walking away from the U.S. in terms of its relationship. So we're in a time of chaos. It's important for us to understand that, and it's important for us that we've had a system that has been particularly dominant in the last 500 years, but it can't last. But this is our table, and we put the food on the table, and we eat the food on the table, and we can invite who we want to the table, and who we don't want to invite, we don't invite to the table. But we have that capacity, and we have that ability, and all we then need is a commitment. And I think, Charles, I heard you say you have that commitment, and I believe that that commitment is here, for all of us. So, without further ado, I'll say what my dad said. Up, you mighty people, you can accomplish what you will. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.